thanks to the Creator for this adventure. We give thanks to the Creator for the learning and the teaching that comes to us. I wasn't able to take advantage of that myself, but I'm very pleased, and I thank Continuous. What do you want to Continuous, Creator of all life, and ask you to make this meeting a successful one for everyone that's here. So what do you want to Continuous? I hope.
Before we do anything, what I'd like to ask of all of you to do is to remember some of Arnie Neptune's words last night, talking about how we need to, of course, thank the Creator for all that we have, and to think about the fact that that a little piece of creation is within each of us, and it allows us to do what we are able to do. And I think to keep those things in mind as we go through the day, to, in my Iroquois way, come together and have one mind, that we come together with open hearts and one mind, and that mind is the future of our children, of all our children, so that they're better prepared and able to work well with all kinds of diversity. And so I'd like to just take a minute to think about that, if you would.
Well, it began with the legislative process with the Offensive Names Bill. And, you know, Donald and I basically were putting that bill together and getting it through, and found a lot of legislators had no clue about the tribes, who, you know, the names of the tribes, if they were tribal members in Maine, or you know, so it was a huge educational, in-depth process just to get that Offensive Names Bill through. So it was during that process that I realized that, you know, there really needs to be some sort of education, not for us receiving education from the majority culture, but us actually telling our view and our stories, and for them to recognize who we were and what our contributions were. And I thought that was really important.
They do, and especially when it's social studies time and they get to put the textbook away for once and get out some hands-on material from some of the kits, like the Passamaquoddy kit, from the Penobscot kit. They enjoy learning about something that's very unfamiliar to them. It makes them feel like they can be part of history and understanding someone's culture, and it doesn't have to be from away.
Well, it was a long process. We couldn't just bring this forward without some initial steps that took place before this. We had to show the state that you don't know about Native history. They had their perceptions about Native history, you know, and it was mostly the Western tribes, what they learned in school, and some rumors that they heard in town histories and stuff. But it was initial steps to gradually get the state to see for a need for the Native education in the state.
I've been thinking about how best to explain or get across the importance of this particular legislation that we're talking about. You need to look no further than the newspapers and the media today, as we speak, to gain a understanding that tribal-state relations should be improved, need to be improved. This goes right back to the 1980 Land Claims Settlement Act. And I want to just provide a little background on MITSIC. The Maine Indian Tribal State Commission, was created in 1980 as part of the Settlement Act. And the main purpose of MITSIC was to discuss and weigh in on possible solutions to areas where the state of Maine and the tribes are in disagreement over certain interpretations of the Settlement Act. And it was created, the framers of the Settlement Act understood that it was a living document, subject to change and revisions, and that would happen over time. And MITSIC was charged with discussing and focusing in on those areas of disagreement and coming up with recommendations for changes. I want to point to a document that I would recommend anybody that's involved with education on contemporary Native American issues in Maine. There's it's called At Loggerheads. It's a publication put out by MITSIC 10 years ago in 1997, and it highlights a lot of the issues, the contentious issues 10 years ago. Many of those issues are still being discussed and debated and are still the source of disagreement between the tribes and the state. And this is a quote from Sharon Treat, who was the House Chair of the Judiciary Committee of the 117th Legislature. She was also a member of this Tribal State Relations Task Force. Sharon said, "I have been struck by the lack of awareness of tribal concerns which seem to run throughout state government. Issues come up over and over that I would have thought that there would be dialogue on. For example, economic development, education policy, and racism in public schools. Why hasn't the Department of Economic and Community Development gone on the road to meet with tribal members, to share resources and technical assistance for small businesses, and to look into the real economic problems facing the tribes? Is the Department of Education aware of the racism in public schools and the curriculum deficiencies which were brought to the attention of the task force? Surely it is within the responsibilities of the Department of Education to know about these problems and to work with the tribes to solve them."
Before the Native Education Bill was implemented, well, my first year in the legislature was 1998, and I served 4 years and took a 4-year break and back again. But while I served in the legislature, the biggest need that I saw was the lack of understanding of state people, of the existence of Native people in the state of Maine. I was really surprised talking with some of the reps and them not knowing that there were 4 tribes in the state. And I said, something's wrong there. But one of the biggest issues that I had Native women approach me on when I got elected was the issue of offensive names in Maine.
So when we finished those 12, we found that there was some holes. One thing that we saw was regionally, we were an old town in Indian Island that we wanted to expand and bring more teachers in from all over the state. But we also wanted to ensure that the curriculum that we had just didn't fall into that 4 through 8 window. We wanted to make sure we were doing something that was appropriate for high school and also for K-3. And so we went on the road, me, Maureen, and Connie, to give 6 regional workshops throughout the state. From those workshops, we actually recruited teachers to work with the Penobscot Nation in developing some more curriculum.
Well, we want children in the state of Maine